and
Mm.
enjoy. Just enjoy. When I say enjoy, I think people need to learn how to enjoy themselves. How do you enjoy yourself?
In the final episode of season one, the host of In the Meantime gather on the porch one last time to reflect on everything this season has taught them about love, work, healing, and becoming. Through laughter, reflection, and one last porch talk letter, they revisit the moments that shaped them and the truths that still echo that the meantime isn't punishment, it's preparation and we're all learning to grow through it together. So, in the meantime, we are all becoming in love, in work, and in life. This is In the Meantime.
Wisdom for the spaces between who we were.
And who we're becoming.
All right.
Yes.
Welcome to episode 7. For now,
Yay.
and
Yay.
Yay!
so everybody, we have
It's
made it to
completion.
the end of season 1. And
Yes.
today we are slowing down to reflect on what we've learned, what's changed, and what we're still becoming.
This season took us through love, heartbreak, job lost, stillness, and everything in between. Through all of it, we kept showing up for ourselves and for this porch. We kept
Yes.
showing up. We kept showing up.
And because this isn't just a show, it's a space, right? So it's a place to tell the truth out loud, to learn from one another, and to remember that no matter what season we're in, the meantime is still sacred and always will be.
Yes.
So, for our final porch talk of the season, this one comes from us. So, it's our love letter to you all in the meantime, to everybody who has been sitting on this porch with us, those who have listened to us share our personal stories, those who have listened to us share stories from other people. This time it's from us.
Yes. All right. So we're going to jump into it. All right. Dear, in the meantime, this season, we've come to realize that the meantime is more than a moment. It's a space. It's a porch, a prayer, and a promise. A porch because we gather here with our stories, our laughter, and our truth. A prayer because so much of this season has been about surrendering what we
Mhm.
can't control.
Mm,
And a promise because even in uncertainty, we know something sacred is still growing in us.
absolutely. So, we've talked about love, the kind that fills you up and the kind that breaks you open. We've learned that sometimes love ends quietly and sometimes it asks you to start over.
Mhm.
That letting go isn't failure, it's making
Mhm.
room for truth. And we've
Yes.
also learned that peace is a kind of love too, one that often comes after a storm.
Yes.
We've also talked about labor, the work that builds us, drains us, and sometimes defines us. We've
Mm.
learned that our worth was never meant to live in a little or to do list.
Mm.
The rest isn't laziness, it's living. That you can lose the job, the schedule, the security, and still not lose yourself.
Yes. If this season taught us anything, it's that the meantime isn't punishment, it's
Mm-mm.
preparation.
Mm-hmm.
It's the soil where something true starts to grow, where love stretches, work softens, and faith deepens.
The meantime is the middle of becoming, the messy, the holy, the necessary. It is the space between what we've survived and what we're still building.
Mm.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the point, to
Mm.
keep learning, to keep softening, to keep becoming together.
Signed, the porch,
The prayer.
The promise.
the
The meantime.
meantime.
Yes. Look, y'all. Okay, so let's jump on in here. I love that letter to us, to our audience, right? The line that really kind of got me, and it gets me every time, and it really makes me ponder, like, what this whole podcast is supposed to be about, right? The meantime isn't punishment, it's preparation. It
Mm-hmm.
really is the soil where everything new begins. Like when I hear that, when I think about that, like I really do start thinking about wow, because I think sometimes the meantime, that place in the middle where you're trying to figure things out, um, where you don't know what you're doing and where you're going and what you even need to do, but
Mhm.
it's kind of like that muddy place in the middle,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, but
Yes.
but I do think it's preparation, and I do think it provides opportunity
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
start
Yeah.
something new, right? Because
Yeah.
in that meantime, you're thinking about maybe all the things that came before that got you to this place in the
Yeah.
middle. But
Yes.
then, wow, the possibilities of where you can go from that place to me just um, sounds exciting.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
yeah,
think it helps your mindset too. It makes the journey a little easier when you're in that muddy space to say, this is, um, I can look at it as just horrible, terrible punishment or something that's, just a 100% absolute negative, even though you may have some negative experiences or have some negative feelings about it. It's helpful. I think it has been helpful for me to say, oh goodness, must be preparing me for something. I'm going to need
right.
Mhm.
for something, and then I can kind of shift my mindset a little bit to toward that new place or whatever it might be positive that comes out of that. So yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Looking back this season, love, work, healing, becoming, what stands out most for you, or what are you carrying from your meantime related to things that we've kind of talked about in the podcast this season?
Whew, that's a loaded
So,
question.
so much, so much came out. The letter that stands out the most, I think, is the lady that uh, fell out of love with, I
Mhm,
want
Mm,
her husband.
mhm,
We fall in love and we fall out of love all the time.
mhm,
mm,
But when but when you're married,
mhm,
do you give up? With me, we've been married for 21 years.
mhm.
wow.
And you can love somebody this morning and tomorrow.
Yeah.
Ah,
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
don't tell
Yeah.
me that.
I, I'm telling you, I mean, you have different seasons, and just like, girl, it was so cold this morning, and then this afternoon the sun came out, and it was kind of warm a little bit, and I think it's getting back cold again.
Mhm,
Wow.
mhm,
So
Wow.
our lives is just like that, in season,
Yes.
out of season.
And you said something there because then the question becomes how do you adjust to that,
mhm.
right?
Or do
Because you
you
might
adjust to it? Do you
or
create a
do
new
you?
reality?
Well,
Right.
I
now
remember telling that lady, "That's fine, girl."
Get on about it there. No.
I I think for me,
Mhm,
when you make a covenant
Mm,
mhm,
with God,
mhm,
a covenant is a promise.
mm,
And when you make a covenant, it is what it is. I mean, I made the covenant. I chose to do this.
mhm.
mm.
So I ain't going nowhere.
Just say, Angela, you ain't going nowhere.
Mhm.
Mm-mm. Now
Yeah.
Wow.
he might, but I ain't.
Mm,
Mhm.
wow.
Uh,
So I mean, it's just different. It's just different.
Yeah, it is. And it's challenging. And we can say, oh, I would do this or I wouldn't do this. And a lot of times until you actually get in the situation,
mhm,
right? Because
Exactly.
there's so many
Exactly.
variables and
It
factors
is. It
that
is.
kind of
It is.
determine, what you'll do. Like, right? Just like we were
Uh,
talking about the letter, because
uh,
the lady was saying that she was not in love with him anymore and those kind of things. But then remember, we had read another letter where this person did not treat her well, right?
mhm,
Cheated
mhm.
on her and did
Oh,
all the
that's the one.
things. And remember, we kind of went back and forth with like,
Mhm.
okay, so
That's the one
we
that I said I would get on up out of there. Yeah. I
yeah,
think
that
the other
mm,
yeah.
one was where I was kind of like,
mm,
well,
Yeah, because
uh,
yeah, so again, we just don't know. It
mhm,
really depends on the situation. And even and I hear what you're saying, Angela, and I think that's where a lot of people are. They feel like I made this commitment or in covenant to God
mhm,
relating, regarding this relationship. And I won't get into all of that, but I do think that even the Bible talks about there are times, right, that that covenant could be broken, perhaps. But I also think when I'm sharing with people, like if they've been abused and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
in that moment, honestly, and this is just me, I don't be thinking about anything other than safety,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I
For
agree with that.
them and
I
for,
agree with that. I
yeah.
agree
So I'm just
with that.
saying it just depends on so many variables.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we found in reading these letters, right? That's what we found in this,
Mhm.
in these in the meantime moments. Sometimes we don't know what we'll do, right? Because sometimes this stuff will come upon you. I think one of the things that, or letters that resonated with me was the lady who lost her job. And I just remembered one of the things that was said was something about how your work can be tied to your identity, right?
Oh,
And I remember when I retired, and that resonated with me because that was probably one of the most challenging times of my life, right? You're walking out this door. I'm walking out for the last time. I've been at this place for 22 years and really, and in the field, right? 30. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, wow, like, what am I going to do with my life, right? Because so much of it was tied to my job, my students,
but
people that my colleagues that I work with every day, that kind of thing. And so I think for me, that's what stood out.
Yeah, I'd say another thing about that episode in particular is, and we got so many comments and messages on this one, private messages,
Right.
um, about that the episode, because it really, I think, gave people permission to admit their feelings, and feelings that
Yes.
people can be embarrassed to admit. Like, I'm not feeling my husband anymore, or
Hmm.
I'm in a my relationship looks great on the outside, but behind closed doors, it's a hot mess. We don't like each other. We don't talk to each other. We might take Christmas pictures dressed up as, in our, pajama sets or whatever. But there are people who, for whom that episode in particular was super helpful in allowing them to feel the feeling, to recognize that feeling, to see themselves perhaps in some of that, and then also to admit to themselves. And then from there, I think they could make some analysis or decisions, or whatever, right? I'll say another thing about, I can't remember if it was that episode and or another episode, but I remember Miss Angela saying, "Oh, it was whatever was the episode where somebody wrote in and was talking about their single season and how hard it was, and what they had to kind of tell themselves to get themselves through." Miss Angela's like, "I got in the word," and I was like, "And I got out."
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think it is, I think it's interesting how we process and use our life experiences in different
Mhm.
ways, right? One person may say, okay, here's the same situation, right? So we're experiencing the same situation essentially, but I am reaching for this to cope, and I am reaching for that to cope, or
mm,
this mechanism or whatever. And I think it just speaks to the uniqueness and individuality, of us as human beings, right? We don't all
Right.
have to take the same route. We don't all have
That's
to
right.
take the same path. And, I hope that the listeners have heard some of our experiences and the things that we've done and been through, and what has helped, guide us in certain ways, but to also not take it as absolutes, right?
Right.
Like, this, just because this may have worked for me doesn't necessarily mean that it has to work
That's
for
true.
you, and
yeah.
vice versa. You may take a different approach. You may see things differently, even in terms of decisions that you make, regarding, work and life and relationships and all that kind of great stuff, right? I just thought it was interesting to point out one of those things. Okay, two more things that are completely unrelated. I just realized I didn't take my pimple patch off. Listen, listen, y'all. This is a in the meantime until my pimple heal itself. It's
That's
this
right.
patch gonna be on.
That's
And
right.
then number two, you two came from the old black church, because as you all were talking and read to each other, y'all were like being like ad-libbing like you hear in churches. I was just listening to y'all. Like, Mama, you would read something and Miss Angela would be like, "Oh yeah, and then it would switch, and I'm just sitting here listening, like, we know
But
y'all came from the old black church in Mississippi.
but it worked. It
That's true.
worked. It worked. It
Yes,
worked.
yes.
Yes.
So all we were saying, most people talk what they know. So
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
say what you know, and what you don't know, you don't know. So
Mhm. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
what worked. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like that. And just to piggyback on what both of you are saying, because it's so important that people realize their own uniqueness, like
Yeah.
their own ability to cope with and how they've coped in the past. One of the things
Yeah.
that we do, even in my field in social work, one of the things that we assess for are coping mechanisms. So when people come to us and they're going through things, one of the questions that we ask is, you know, when you consider how you've coped with things in the past, tell me about that. Tell me what worked for you then, because what we're trying to assess for, we're trying to determine if they can use some of those same things to deal with whatever situation they're presently in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. It's so different, like the different ways that we, or the
Mhm.
different tools that we use, right? And so, and for a lot of people, because we are in the Bible Belt, and so they'll say, well, what's important to me is prayer and God and the Bible and etc. But I've also had people to say, well, what's important to me are just maybe people in their lives who've been very supportive and people that they can talk to, or meditating, or so people come up with different ways, and I honor all of those ways,
Absolutely.
right? I want to put that out there because I think it's important that people understand that you do what, and Angela, you just said it, doing what works for you. When if that's what you know, and if that's what has worked for you, then
Yeah,
that's what
and that's
you
her.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
yeah,
think
I like that point.
people who are close to me know I'm a journaler and I've been journaling for a long time,
Yes.
long time. And
Long
so
time.
people always say like, "Oh man, I wish I could do that." Like I wish I could just journal
Hmm.
like that because it just seems like it would be so cathartic or whatever. And it very much so is for me. But I always tell people, try it, but don't force yourself to do it
That's
because
right.
it won't work the same.
Yeah.
Right? Like it won't,
Yes.
if you are not a person who expresses and gets out whatever's on your mind onto
Yeah.
paper, and that doesn't work for you, it will become a burden that you
Yes.
try to make yourself do it, and then you will become disappointed at the fact that you can't be consistent and do it, and that it just adds to you just got
That's
to find
true.
the thing that works for you. Some people go running, some people work out, some people do yoga or meditate or whatever, right? But you just got to
Hmm.
find the thing that works for you, and I think it's okay, like we've said, that thing is not the same thing for everybody. But
Right.
journaling always, is the thing because people are like, how do you do it? And I'm like, it's for me, it's almost kind of like it's almost like a cup that gets filled with thoughts and things, and I need to like empty the cup.
Right.
And I need to spill
Yeah.
it out on the pages so I can just like clear my space.
Yes,
Clear my
yes.
mind space.
Oh, I like
Yeah.
that. And then back to what we were talking about, using that, like what we just talked about, the people who wrote the letters, we don't know ultimately what they're going to do, right? We shared
Yeah.
some of our perspectives and we don't know what they're going to do. But again, I'm like you all, I hope that people get that it's up to them, like you're
Yeah.
right, to decide what they want to do. But I think what helps is that when you hear other perspectives, when we're talking about these issues, when we're not skirting around these issues. And so,
Mm.
yeah, so I've been really helped a lot with this podcast, just listening to those letters and listening to the different perspectives.
Is there
Mm-hmm.
anything about the love and letting go, either one of those episodes or those letters, that makes some truth about love feel different today? Is there anything about those experiences and talking through those people's experiences that makes love or the truth about love feel different? Or how you show up for those challenges in your relationship? Does any of that look different for
I'm
either
I'm
one of
just
you?
I'm gonna piggyback off something Angela said actually, and maybe you can speak some more to this, Angela. For me, for sure, I think I'm seeing things differently with regard to love. Now, I think I shared in an earlier podcast that I'm still trying to figure out what romantic love really is,
Mm.
what
Oh,
that really looks like, right? How that really feels. So I can't really speak to that, but what I know is that now I'm thinking, regardless of how it's defined, Angela just talked about the various seasons,
mm-hmm.
right? And so even though you could be in love with somebody or love somebody,
Mm-hmm.
that can the feeling, right, can
Mm-hmm.
change from day to day. Now, what I do
From
believe
that.
about love is that it's action, right? And sometimes I think most people think it's not most people, but some people think it's just emotion.
Mm.
And so I'm now looking at it differently. Like, okay, so yes, you could love somebody, be in love with somebody, and not like somebody today,
Uh
right? And then
huh.
really, really love them
Yeah.
tomorrow,
Yeah.
right?
I can.
Yeah.
I can.
Mm.
I can.
Mhm.
See, I can. I promise.
Yeah.
Can. I
Yeah,
can.
I think I'm taking from it that I like to see the whole picture. I like to hedge any challenges. Like I need to see what's coming my way, right? And that's not always possible, right? You can't that's just my own
Yep.
control. Like I
That's
want
you. That's you.
I can't control every narrative, but I do like I don't like to be blindsided by something and then have like be like, oh, I didn't think about that or I didn't see that thing through. And so when I embark upon something new, I'm like clamoring for information. I want to read the books. I want to look at the artists. I want to see what people are saying about it because I just always want to be prepared as much as I can be
Right.
prepared. And we can't be 100% prepared for everything, but I
Right.
do think listening to these different perspectives, some I'm just like hard and fast on. And again, like, it's easy to say that unless you're in a situation. So don't, say, oh, what Tiffany said. But there are some things that in my current state I think I would be hard and fast on. But there are other things that you're like, what if you just fall out of? Like, what if you just stop feeling it? And I think listening to that is heartbreaking because when you're in love with somebody, you don't think it's just gonna fade away.
Mm.
Like you don't think it's just gonna fade away. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
and so I think for me, that letter or that episode in particular, obviously that letter, really kind of made me think, okay, if there is something that I feel like might be waning about this, that it is better to take a step towards something early than to let it fester and then go for years and years of like, this ain't it, you know?
Yes.
And I think that for us, and I think we may have said this even in the episode, what does that look like in terms of how do you keep the spark? Are we prioritizing date night? Are we prioritizing conversations that are not about
We should.
responsibilities?
I
Are
think
we
we should.
prioritizing
But
the
when
romance and the
but
things that brought us and kept us together in the beginning?
when you fading, Tiffany, you don't want to keep that romance. No,
I don't want it to fade though, Miss.
okay, okay. I'm saying, okay. Well, just I mean, I think eventually that person becomes your best friend.
Mhm,
So when there's a
mhm,
difference in a best friend,
mhm.
in a husband, in a lover, I can come up with a whole lot of other
I
names,
want him to be all of those things.
and he can.
Okay.
And and he
Mm,
can, and he
mhm,
should, and he will.
mhm,
But even those things, there's some days that he my best friend, and let's
Mm.
just go to the movies, friend.
And
mhm,
basically you're saying that works for you all. So and
Yeah,
what I would say is, right, because earlier in one of the podcasts I talked about how we get to define all of these things,
yeah,
right?
mhm,
We
yeah,
talked
mhm,
about defining success. We talked about we get to define our relationship. But what
yeah.
I would not want, because I've heard this over and over from
mhm,
different people who have been in relationships for years and years and they're miserable. They're
mhm,
not happy. And so
mhm,
they don't even get to the romantic piece. They might just be roommates. Do you know what I'm saying? And so for me, my heart goes out, especially if you have one who wants more than that.
mhm,
So whatever y'all decide on, both of you have to decide on it. But if you have one who wants one thing, who's saying,
mhm,
I want the romance, I want the friendship, I want it all, and one who says, well, look, we've been together now, Father. We ain't going nowhere. We just gonna be roommates. See, that's not fair to the person who wants more. So
mhm.
that's when I would say, okay, y'all need to have some conversation and make some
Yeah,
decisions. You know what I'm
yeah.
Uh,
saying? Because both
you,
people
you,
should.
you, you know what, Dolores? Now you are right. You are absolutely right. But let me tell you,
It
girl,
warrants a conversation.
huh?
Mhm.
It warrants a conversation. And then I think it warrants a conversation, right? Like
Yes, yes.
that I want something different from what you want.
Hmm.
And it is not fair to either of us
Right.
that we are in a situation where I'm not getting what I want, you're not getting what you want. And neither one of
Hmm.
us are able to budge in that. That means you're always going to be resentful because you desire something that I'm not willing to give or vice versa.
Hmm.
That
Mm-hmm.
can't be fun. I don't
Yeah.
want to, like, and I think that's it. I think that's part of the hedging exercise or like trying to, because that don't sound like I don't know, it don't sound like a happy time to me.
And as somebody who's single, I'm just sitting up here listening, thinking, because like one, Angela, you're married. Tiffany, eventually you will be, right? And I'm sitting up here thinking as a
Perhaps.
single. Mhm.
I said
Yep.
perhaps.
Yep. And I'm thinking, sitting up here thinking as a single person, I would rather be single. Now, again, I'm speaking because I'm not married, so I can't, but I would rather be single than to be in a relationship where it's not benefiting me in the way that's important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, again, I think both people have to come together, have the discussion about what they want, what they desire.
Mm-hmm.
And if both people are willing to work on it, that's one thing. Because
Yeah.
I just think
Yeah.
all relationships have,
Yeah.
highs and lows. But if one person is saying, no, this is just where I am, I don't want da da da, I'll stay here, but I ain't gonna, that's not fair to the other person, is all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
I'll say this, and then we can move on to another topic. But I think
Mhm.
one of the things, and I don't not necessarily from the podcast itself, but something I think I've just kind of learned in recent years. Because I used to be like, why would you? Why would you stay for that? Like, like, and so I just because I was assigning what I valued to
Mhm.
somebody else,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so, but for somebody else, what I value might not be of the highest
That's
value
it.
to them,
That's
right?
right.
I may say like, oh, well, that person, cheated, da, 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 da. Like, why would you stay with somebody who would treat you like that and blah, 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 blah. But that person might say, more important than that to me is that
Yep.
our family stay intact. I want my children to grow up in a household that both parents are there, and that is of the highest importance to me, even higher than these other things. And so I learned that
Mhm.
what was might have been a priority to me is not necessarily somebody else's priority. So it may be that I would not be happy in a situation where I didn't feel like I was, whatever. But for that person or other people, your priorities may be different. I think I'm on the same page with you, Mom. I mean,
Mhm.
in a relationship, obviously love that man down.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I think if the options were to be with somebody and not and just kind of like being like a
Yeah.
mediocre or whatever, I would have been married already because I would have done that already.
Mhm.
But then two, I would rather be single because I'm happy single and I was
Mhm.
happy single.
Mhm.
Obviously wanted a relationship, but more than wanting a relationship, I wanted to be happy, whole, free, self-actualized as a person.
Wow, I know. It's so there's so many layers to this thing
It,
because so even though we said we were moving on, I'm gonna have to say this part
Yeah.
because even though somebody might prioritize, I want my family to be intact, I want my kids to grow up with the mom and dad.
Mhm.
What's really interesting is so then you have to start asking yourself though, like, so what kind of relationship will your kids see, right? Like
mhm, mm,
because then we talk about generational or cycles, right? And so, I said in one of the podcasts that one of my things that I've had to apologize for as a parent is that my kids did not have an opportunity to see what I would deem a healthy relationship, right?
mm,
And so that's not fair to them. So even though religiously I was hanging in there for a while because I felt that was the right thing to do from a religious point of view, was it really though, right? Because even if you decide on one hand to do it for this reason, what are the other things that you have to be mindful of? Because a lot of children will say, I wish I had done that, wish I had gotten that divorce earlier, right? Because
yeah,
they don't even
yeah.
like the so again, I just think that there are so many layers to these things that
And no right
that's why people have to have the conversation. They have to decide themselves both. If both, if you're older, you don't have kids involved, da da da, and you decide, you know what, we just gonna be here, we're gonna do this, we're gonna ride out life together.
Yeah.
We've been together long enough. Then hey, do you? You know what I'm saying?
Do you?
It just yes. What you say, Angela?
Do you?
That what she said, do you
Mhm.
boo? That's right.
Uh-huh.
Period. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
yeah. Um
To both of
oh,
you all, when we started the podcast, is there something that you wanted to offer the audience? Did you have any idea of like this is, if we could convey anything, this is what it would be?
that's
If I could tell the audience anything, it would be live your best life. The way you
good.
live your best life is you got to do a lot of self care. my caterer for my party today, she asked me, she said, "Did you have any regrets with the food or anything?" I said, "No, ma'am. I just thank God that I was able to buy the food and just
Mm.
enjoy. Just enjoy." When I say enjoy, I think people need to learn how to enjoy themselves. How
Yes.
do you enjoy yourself? And all of it is not just taking yourself to the movies, because I don't do that. I don't go to the movies by myself. And I think you do though, don't you, Dolores?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
And that's good. That's good.
Yes.
But I don't want to go to the movies by myself. I do not.
Right.
But you know what? There's a little part of me kind of scary. I'm kind of scary a little.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
You
So
got to learn yourself. And in order to learn yourself, you got to spend some time with yourself.
Yes.
So I enjoy driving to work by myself every day, because that's a little bit of me time. I enjoy watching TV. I just enjoy me. I
And you
enjoy me.
And I want to add to that, Angela, because that's something you have said throughout all of these that I've really gotten from you from this experience, like these episodes that we've done, because you always bring that up. And I think, um, if Tiffany, when you asked the question, what is it that we want people to get from this, right? I think at the very foundation root of this is about like really getting to know ourselves and doing and being aware of self, doing the introspective work, because in the meantime, in that middle ground, in that middle place, that's where a lot of that takes place, right?
Yeah,
When life throws you a curveball and you find yourself in that in the meantime moment, you're trying to figure things out. And I think it starts with you, the individual. And Angela, you said it over and over, taking care of self, really getting to know yourself. And I think those are the things
mhm,
that happen in the meantime.
mm,
You're pulling back some layers. You're saying, okay,
mhm.
I thought, like the lady who lost the job and her job was tied to her identity, right? And so now she's thinking, wow, what do I do now? Now she's trying to figure out herself. Maybe this is an opportunity, Angela, for her to
Mhm.
to do some things for herself, to
Oh yeah,
to figure out who she is and what she wants to do next. And so I have really appreciated you bringing that up over and over to remind us that it really is about figuring out who we are and where we are, and that changes from day to day too, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And getting to know ourselves. Recently I took myself out on a date and I had the best time. I went to see a play, and then I took myself out to dinner, and it had the best time. Now I have on my bucket list to go on some trips by myself, right?
Oh,
Just
now I
yeah.
haven't made it there yet. I'm trying. I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. So it's
Right.
going to happen. It's going to
Yes.
happen. I'm thinking about it. I'm,
Right.
I love that. Can I add to the self-care conversation? Because I think I think there's a lot of commentary in the atmosphere around
Mhm.
self-care and how we take
Mhm.
care of ourselves and how we self-care. Go to the
Mhm.
spa, go, treat yourself nice. And I think one of the things that's I heard somebody say a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, yes, this resonated with me. And because people say, like, you got to love yourself. You got to love yourself, right?
Mhm.
And so people say, well, I do love myself. Of course I love myself. I love myself. I want the
Yeah.
best for me. I want da 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 da, right? But she said that the measurement of how well you love yourself is by by the treatment that you accept from yourself and from other people towards you.
Mm.
And so in the conversation that they were having, somebody was in some toxic situation, right? And she kept saying, but you have to love yourself. And she's like, I do love myself. I do. She's like, but you cannot. If you
Right.
are allowing somebody else to treat you badly and you
Mhm.
are accepting that, right? So it's not just, do I do fun, nice things? 'Cause y'all know, y'all come across people who have it all and buy themselves all the nice things and look
Yep.
amazing and take trips and do all the fun things. But when it comes down to it, will accept any type of treatment from anybody because they're needing that validation from some external source, right? Whether
Yes.
their relationship, from their family, they're not able to stand up for themselves, they're not able to center themselves in any of their decision making, right? They're not
That's
able
true.
to say no, they're not able to adjust, they're not able to make other people adjust. So when I heard that, I thought, wow, that is because if you It's like your children. You know you love your children. Now, the only time I've really seen mom act not badly, but in a way that, was like, oh,
Yeah.
was when she was defending her children.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to treat my child bad. You're not going to talk to my child any kind of way. You're not going to discriminate against my child. I'm going to stand up for my child, and I won't accept any less treatment. And I think
Mm.
that we have to be like that about ourselves. We have to
Wow.
be willing to release and let go, because it is a
Mhm.
measurement of what you believe about yourself and how you think about yourself when you allow people to treat you any kind of way. So,
Tiffany, that was good. That was good stuff right there, right? Because you're absolutely right. I think when we think about self care and we think about loving self, we don't sometimes look at it in terms of how we allow others to treat us. And you're definitely right. When it came to y'all, it was kind of like, but when it came to me, I ended up taking a lot of stuff. Actually, I was a little passive aggressive in some situations, and but I think that comes from a place too, right? I think sometimes we feel like we have to take certain things given where we are in life, right? I know I needed a job. And so sometimes I would kind of take some things. I should have probably spoken up about some things that I did not, if it was done directly to me. You know what I'm saying? I kind of took it because in my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I need this
yeah,
job and I don't
your
want to. Right.
responsibilities are.
Right. But ultimately, what you're saying, though, is wow, that's just giving me, that's something to really think about. Yes, we need to treat ourselves well, but we need to look at how we allow others to treat us because that definitely speaks volumes. That's an area. If I'm letting somebody treat me a certain way, then that's an area that I need to explore and figure out why am I allowing this to happen.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
be want to say that. No, you don't love yourself. No, you don't. You can't.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
You can't.
Abs-
Is
yeah.
there anything else from you all regarding, any of the letters that we've read? Has there been something that you have received from any of the stories, or just from coming together? I'll say this. Something I received from the podcast. It's just been fun to chat with you two on a,
Yeah.
I guess not like a mama auntie level, but this is what we do. But it's been fun to hear your experiences, and it's been fun to explore some of these themes with the two of you, who have obviously just been such a huge part of my life and my growing up. And so
Aw.
I've received a good time from season one with y'all.
Tiffany.
Yeah. Yes. And look, it goes both ways because I think Angela and I, a lot of times we talk about our children and we talk about how much we glean from you all.
Yeah.
Um, as parents, a lot of times people think, it's the parents' responsibility to pour into their children. But we talk about how our children are now pouring into us.
Yeah.
And that's been refreshing. So it's been great listening to your wisdom as well, Miss Tiffany. So, y'all, it's really wild how this started as a podcast and it just kind of fast became a healing space. You know what I'm saying? Like we just
Yeah.
started talking about these things, but because, like I said, I definitely have gotten some messages where people were saying, wow, I really needed that. Like that really helped me out in my current situation. And so, I've been really pleased to hear people kind of speak to it as a healing place, which is ultimately what we wanted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think every episode has kind of taught us something about, slowing down and seeing ourselves clearer. And that's the thing about the meantime. You don't realize you're becoming until you look back.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wading
Yeah.
in water, trying not to
Right.
drown.
Yes,
And then not
absolutely.
realizing that once you've gotten to the shore, you were a better swimmer because
Yeah.
of,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And so I'm just thinking now. So when y'all reflect, I want each of us to maybe just kind of mention one or two things that we have as takeaways for this season, right? Like so, we talked about a lot, but what are some things that y'all can think of that you are definitely gonna use or that has really stood out to you from this season? Well, guess what? I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start. Okay,
Okay.
because you know what I thought about all the things we talked about. So we talked about job loss. We talked about relationship issues. We talked about defining and redefining things, right? Like success, like the word itself, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so I think I mentioned this in another podcast, the grief process. So when I think about loss, a lot of times people think about loss through death, but loss of a job, loss of a relationship, all of those things constitute loss, right? And so I mentioned something about the various stages of loss and how we go through these various stages, and not in any particular order. So we might be angry one minute, sad the next minute, right? Then angry again.
Yeah, yeah,
So it just kind of goes back and forth, all the various stages. And so one of the things that I've gotten is that it's okay to be in these meantime spaces, because that's where growth can occur. It's okay to go through those various stages. We're human. And so I think it's important that people have a safe space to feel and to be uncomfortable and to be in these spaces, and to know that it's okay to be angry, to be upset, to be mad, to do all to have all of these emotions. It's okay. It's a part of who we are. And then the last thing I'll just simply say is, I think it's important to define what we desire, to define that for ourselves. So even
yeah,
though we might all have different perspectives, I get to define what success means for me. I get to define what a healthy relationship would look like and mean for me,
yeah,
right? And I get to decide if I want to stay, leave, or do whatever I want to do, right? And
yeah.
so I think ultimately, that's what I've kind of gotten from this. What about y'all?
I'll say one of them I've kind of said, but one of the important lessons, I think it's great to share. I think it's great to, I think there's a healing in hearing from other women who have are either on, some part of the journey, or who have already been through some part of that journey that you might be on, and you're listening to how they kind of navigated it. And I think that's really great. And I think it's just kind of like it gives you like a buffet of tools, right? That,
Mhm.
can be helpful to you. But just like at a buffet line, you might say, I don't really
Mhm.
want that. I want
Right.
here. I don't want potatoes. I want rice, or I want
Right.
broccoli versus whatever it is, right? That there is healing in hearing shared experiences and individual experiences, and at the same time, whatever tools that you need, you can pick them up and use them. And then, as mom says, make the decisions that work best for you. And they don't have to, doesn't have, every plate doesn't have to look the same. When you're in a buffet line, no two plates are going to look the same, right? And I'll say this, it's okay to pick up something that you think you want.
And
And you taste it and be like, they ain't put no
I don't even want it. I don't even want it.
it, and it looks good when I picked it up, but it don't look good. It don't taste good.
That's right.
And
That's
it's
right.
okay to leave it on the plate,
That's
and
it.
so, and I think that is, there are no, I tell myself this, I wish I wish I didn't have to keep reminding myself about it and that it was innate, but there are no wrong answers, right? Like you can
Yeah,
just get to
yeah,
make the decision, and then you can make the decision good, or you can say, you know what, this didn't work, moving on, but I used to struggle with, like, there is one right decision in this buffet line,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
just got to figure out which one. But that's not the way life works, right? You can
Mhm.
make a decision, and then you can, change your mind, or you can make that decision right, or whatever, right? But there are no wrong decisions. You either learn from your decision, or you win by way of having made that decision. But it's all part of the journey, and you'll need all parts of the journey to really elevate and move to the next level in your own life. So that's my takeaway.
Yes.
yes. I agree. I agree, Tiffany.
All right,
Great.
so we've reached the reflection part. So this is for the audience. The question is, what wisdom will you carry from your meantime into what is next for your own life?
Yes. And so we really want you to take a moment just to sit with that, right? And when you're ready, share it with us. We'd love to know what season stirred you up.
And thank you for showing up, for listening, and for growing with us in the meantime.
So for now and in the meantime, I'll just say rest is a right and not a luxury. And I think it's important that we rest and we define what that looks like.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
For now and in the meantime, there are no bad decisions, right? You can make the decision right. You can switch courses. You can stop. You can keep going. Just move through life knowing that it's all a journey. You will always be becoming, and life is not a destination. It is a journey. So you are existing right now in the journey. So remember that.
For now and in the meantime, take care of yourself.
First
Take
and foremost.
care of yourself and give yourself a lot of love.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Y'all, this is In the Meantime.
Wisdom for the spaces between who we were
And who we are becoming.
Thanks for sitting with us this season.
And we'll see you next time.
Yay.
and remember, the meantime isn't the end. It's where we become.
Yay. Yeah, and look, shout out to Tanisha, a
Yeah.
Black unicorn, for her time and patience recording and producing these podcasts. Yay, y'all. Let's give it up for Nisha. Woohoo.
In the Meantime is a production of Black Unicorn Productions. This episode was executive produced by Tanisha Williams. Music by Presence of Sean. Special thanks to you, our community, for sitting with us in the meantime. Until next time, remember, the meantime is a porch, a prayer, and a promise. A sacred space between who we were and who we are becoming. This is In the Meantime.